Hello, dear friends. I am tired of being asked when, and this is the best answer I found. Opinion piece. The $1,000,000 question. He who waits despairs. It's a very difficult thing to answer. God only knows when this will happen. We would say, in good time, green leaves. Many of us hope for months, not years. What do the spiritual forces say about RV? It would be mid-November if people asked for it. It's a good idea to keep waking up the sleepers. IMF accuses World Bank of manipulation. Evergrande fails to meet payment deadline. European energy crisis is about to go global. Capital flight to Switzerland ahead of German elections. China outlaws cryptocurrency transactions. Cryptocurrencies plummet following China's ban. Investors buy more ethereum, dump Bitcoin. Schiff says gold will explode and the dollar will collapse. Silver is more volatile than gold due to its industrial role. Gold will start to move when expected inflation begins. New semiconductor plants will end chips shortage. Taliban plan to reinstate executions and amputations. 24 Chinese military aircraft aggressively invade Taiwan's airspace. Anti-war movement rises up against the new Anglo-Saxon military alliance. Let's start. I remain optimistic and know that the best is yet to come. I know there is a beautiful new world on the horizon for us. I know that a very just natural law is coming for mankind. We can look forward to an infinite quantum world with no taxes or oppressive laws, and with a miraculous new technology on a new ascended demon-free earth. But I also know that this wonderful transformation is taking too long because of those who do not believe, because if you do not believe, you do not create. For this change is up to us, no matter how much outside help we have. And furthermore, we cannot be helped if we do not ask for it. A question is a question that is asked for someone to answer that what they know about the business or something else. And the $1,000,000 question is something that is very difficult to answer. It can be $1,000,000, €1,000,000, or 1,000,000 years. The so-called RV refers to the currency reset better known as the global financial reset, an expression that has worn out from so much use and so much waiting. When it comes, it will come too late, and we can say, a buenas horas mangas verdes, as they say in Spain, in good time green leaves. Juan Sabin has said that we are in the second Jubilee year, when everything will be restored. I know he's right. You know he's right. Starseeds, lightworkers, patriots, and enlightened souls know he's right. It is simply a matter of when, and only God knows when. I believe this system doesn't hold out for more than a year, because the Schiff of maritime law is taking on water all over the place, and the millionaires are fleeing to their bankers, knowing what is coming. The signs and signals that appear every day are too strong to ignore with so many earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions, so it looks like the change is about to come. Questions and answers. What do the higher spiritual forces say about RV? This is Randra's answer. Question. Should we just sit back and let them move slowly and push it slowly. It would take more years and maybe never come. Or are we supposed to do something? Answer. It might be a good idea to keep waking up the sleepers. Question. Supposedly, that was happening. So, this is supposed to go on and on and on for years? Answer. No, not forever. For how long? Answer. Months by probability. Less than a year? Answer. Probably. Why does it have to be so slow? Answer. Because mankind wouldn't really learn from it and wouldn't really purify itself from it. Otherwise, the process wouldn't come to an end, where everyone has caused their own destiny. Question. Are Trump and the lower levels of the coalition really down and doing what the higher levels want them to do or not? Answer. No, they are not. They missed their chance. Now it will work out differently with the same result for everyone to cause their own future. Question. It is likely that the publication of this conversation will bring about RV and currency swaps, huge sums of money for work and humanitarian projects by the end of October? Answer. It will most likely bring these things by mid-November 2021, if not sooner, if enough free will people ask us to do so. If not enough free will people request this, and do not request it emphatically and repeatedly, then it will probably not happen at that time. But if enough people request the above, and emphatically and repeatedly enough, we could force it to happen, as it would then be aligned with free will, and there would be no interference. We would like to add that this could actually be done realistically, for there are enough people who could request free will for this to happen, and emphatically and repeatedly enough. This would depend largely if people who see this conversation posted, send it to other people or post it in other platforms, and motivate enough people to request it for free will. This could be a peaceful popular uprising that would tip the balance. This would provide a realistic way and solution of how it could actually be done. It all depends on whether or not we get enough requests, emphatic enough and repeated enough to force RV, Tier 4B, currency rebates, possibly a modest universal basic income, and huge sums for jobs and humanitarian projects to make this happen now. If so, the above could be realistic by mid-November 2021 or sooner. However, we would also like to point out that if this happens, it will not be in overwhelming probability that there will be heaven on earth by mid-November 2021 or sooner. The most important thing is that everything is done in the service of the one infinite creator and the highest good for all that is. All that is doesn't mean only humankind. All that is means exactly all that is. At present, this distinction is not very important, except that it is very important as an initial configuration for a future mentality. As in all probability, humankind ascending to 4D and higher will become enormously powerful and will make a great difference whether humankind intends to be in service to the highest good for all, that is, or in self-service to the best good for humanity only. This is the great difference between service to others and service to self. Economy. IMF's Georgieva accuses World Bank of manipulation. IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva on Friday criticized an independent report on her alleged role in a China-related data manipulation scandal, while at the World Bank saying it contained fundamental errors and substituted innuendo for facts. Dollar rises. The dollar rose Friday and was poised for its third straight week of gains against a basket of major currencies as uncertainty over beleaguered Chinese property developer Evergrande helped the greenback recover from a sharp drop in the previous session. Gold rises on dollar weakness. Gold prices rose on Friday as the dollar declined and investors shunned riskier assets due to China's Evergrande saga. But looming interest rate hikes slowed the ballion's advance. Gold will begin to move when inflation starts to kick in. The gold-silver ratio opens up again. The gold-silver ratio has held again, indicating that silver is once again an advantageous buy. Silver is much more volatile than gold due to its industrial role, but in essence, it's still a monetary metal and tends to track relatively consistently with gold over time. When gold rises, it almost always takes silver with it, and as noted above, silver generally outperforms gold in these bull runs. Peter Schiff says gold will explode and the dollar will collapse. Peter Schiff says gold will explode and the dollar will implode as markets realize the Fed is crying foul when it comes to monetary tightening. The Federal Reserve concluded another meeting without making any changes to its current inflationary, extraordinarily loose monetary policy, but the central bank hinted that it may soon begin tapering its quantitative easing program. That was enough for the markets. They continued to wait for the Fed to tighten monetary policy and fight rising inflation. Every time the Fed hints a tightening, gold sells off. Every time inflation numbers rise, gold sells off. Markets. New home sales beat expectations. Sales of new single-family homes rose in August for the second straight month in the US, but housing demand has likely peaked after a crisis-fueled buying frenzy. Home prices will rise. Home prices will rise next year according to many experts. House prices are likely to rise by 5.5% in 2022. Stress tests for banks. Researchers at the New York Fed have developed an approach to measure banks' exposure to weather-related risks, a first step in assessing whether financial institutions have sufficient capital on hand. Delivery workers to receive minimum wage. The New York City Council approved minimum trip pay as part of a series of bills aimed at improving working conditions for app-based delivery workers. What is the debt ceiling? For the world's largest economy, defaulting on debt wouldn't only be a domestic crisis, but a global one. During the 2021 debt ceiling debacle, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that not raising the debt ceiling would trigger a widespread economic catastrophe. Texas border camp closed. A makeshift border camp that roiled U.S. politics was emptied of thousands of Haitian migrants on Friday, with most remaining in the U.S. for now, and others being removed on deportation flights or returned to Mexico. Chips shortage. New semiconductor plants will end global chip shortage. Tesla CEO Elon Musk said that thanks to new semiconductor plants that are planned or under construction, it would be a short time before the global chip shortage that has hit the auto industry this year. Seeking solutions. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said it's time to be aggressive in addressing the worsening chip shortage that has caused automakers and others to cut production and impacted thousands of workers. The global auto industry could lose $210 billion in revenue this year due to supply problems, double the amount predicted months ago, according to consulting firms Alex Partners. Europe. European stocks fall. European stock markets fell Friday, and major indexes were a little changed as worries persisted about the fallout from China's debt-laden Evergrande, while bond yields rose after hawkish central bank positions. Eurozone business activity slows. Business activity in the Eurozone notably lost momentum in September after demand peaked over the summer, with supply chain bottlenecks affecting both services and manufacturers. German millionaires move assets to Switzerland ahead of elections. A possible swing of the left in Sunday's German elections is scaring millionaires into moving assets to Switzerland. Queues at British petrol stations. Service stations in southeast England experienced long queues and several ran out of fuel as motorists rushed to fill up their tanks amid a shortage of fuel delivery. Truck drivers, nationalist delusions of Brexit, are dead letter now as tough times lie ahead. UK tells people to stop panic buying. British politicians are panicking as similarities to the 70s winter of discontent, of shortages and socio-economic distress could rear their heads in the coming months. A major factor for Britons is rising natural gas and electricity prices, which have already disrupted segments of the economy and sent shockwaves through energy markets, chemical producers and the food industry. The European energy crisis is about to go global. In fact, it was only a matter of time. In a globalized world, the energy crisis can hardly remain contained regionally for long, especially in context of damaged supply chains and the rush to cut investment in fossil fuels. The energy crisis that began in Europe earlier this month may now be on its way to the US. Cryptocurrencies. China outlaws cryptocurrency transactions. China's central bank said all transactions involving cryptocurrency are illegal, reinforcing the country's tough stance against digital rivals to government-issued money. Criminalized transactions. The bank says cryptocurrencies are not fiat currency and cannot circulate. Any transaction involving cryptocurrencies is now considered criminal financial activity. The bank told financial and internet companies to stop allowing cryptocurrency trading on their platforms. Exchange houses are also banned from providing services to Chinese residents. Cryptocurrency crackdown. China's most powerful regulators on Friday stepped up a crackdown on cryptocurrencies with a blanket ban on all crypto and mining transactions affecting Bitcoin and other major currencies, and putting pressure on cryptocurrency and blockchain-related stocks. Cryptocurrencies plunge. Cryptocurrency stocks fell after China extended its crackdown on digital currencies, with its central bank saying all cryptocurrency-related transactions are illegal, as we have said. Bitcoin falls. Bitcoin fell 5% in half an hour on Friday after the People's Bank of China vowed to crack down on transactions in digital currency, described by Beijing as means of illegal payment on the country's territory. Institutional investors are buying Ethereum and abandoning Bitcoin. A blockchain platform like Ethereum could become a huge marketplace for trusted information providers, much like Amazon is for consumer goods today. Ethereum also has the advantage of running on a decentralized global server basis rather than a centralized one like Amazon or Microsoft, possibly providing a solution to concerns about personal data sharing. Evergrande crisis. Evergrande dodges default but remains on the brink of bankruptcy. China's largest real estate developer, Evergrande, has avoided default or suspension of payments by announcing it will pay interest on its yuan-denominated bonds. However, dollar bondholders remain on edge as they see no sign that the company will meet the payment due on September 23. China steps in to ensure Evergrande funds used to complete housing projects, not pay creditors. China's housing regulator has stepped up supervision of China Evergrande Group's bank accounts to ensure funds are used to complete housing projects and not debited to pay creditors. Evergrande misses payment deadline. The deadline passed Thursday for China Evergrande, the world's most indebted real estate company, to pay $83.5 million in interest on a bond, with $305 billion in liabilities. Evergrande is struggling to meet its debt obligations and markets are watching for signs of default. Debt crisis. The debt crisis engulfing China Evergrande Group has begun to affect home buyer confidence and force developers to cut prices, signaling deeper consequences for the world's number 2 economy and consolidation in the real estate sector. The China Syndrome. Evergrande's default is rattling markets, but few believe that the collapse of a Chinese real estate developer could trigger a global financial crisis. What if Evergrande is just a symptom of a deeper malaise with the Chinese economy and its political and business structures? Perhaps there is more at play than we think. What if Emperor Xi Jinping decides he needs a distraction? China tightens power rationing. Power restrictions are being imposed in major factory centers in more than 10 provinces. The high price of coal is causing pain to power plants that have reduced power output, creating gaps in electricity supply in some provinces. Taiwan on high alert after 24 Chinese aircraft breached the friend zone in 2 incidents. A large group of Chinese military aircraft breached its air defense zone on 2 separate occasions. Thursday. The breaches have been occurring almost daily of late, which Taipei considers unmistakable as acts of aggression. Thursday's new incidents involved 19 Chinese aircraft, including 12 J-16 fighters and 2 nuclear-capable H-6 bombers. Anti-war movement rises against AUKUS alliance. Pacifists and internationalists begin to mobilizing against the US-Australia-UK military pact called AUKUS, which threatens to provoke war with China and encourage nuclear proliferation. Afghanistan. Amputations to return in Afghanistan. The Taliban will resume the corporal punishments they practiced during their first period in power in Afghanistan, but will possibly change their policy of making them public. Cutting off, in quotes, cutting of hands is extremely necessary for security reasons, said the Taliban leader. State Department spokesman Ned Price said Friday that Washington condemns in the strongest term comments by a Taliban official who said the group would reinstate the use of amputations and executions as punishment in Afghanistan. Spain. Firefighters retreat as La Palma volcanic explosions intensify. Intensifying volcanic explosions on the Canary island of La Palma forced firefighters to retreat and authorities to evacuate 3 more towns on Friday, while airlines cancelled flights due to a huge cloud of gas and ash. New vents and higher explosiveness forced more evacuations in La Palma. The volcano of La Palma presents 2 new eruptive vents from which lava flows, and the highest explosiveness, which has forced this Friday to evacuate the neighbors who still remained in 3 of the most threatened areas. A rare earthquake snakes Melbourne, one of the most powerful earthquakes to hit the state of Victoria, Australia, couldn't have come at a worse time, as anti-blockade protesters are fed up with government restrictions. A magnitude 5.9 earthquake struck around 9:15 local time, about 75 miles northeast of Melbourne, causing damage to buildings. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.